Jeff, welcome to the Way of Champions podcast. I'm so excited to have you on and so excited to make this recent connection with you.
Yeah, John, I'm fired up, man. I've listened to you for a long time. You've had a lot of good guests, so I'm honored and I'm excited to be on it.
Well, it was super cool. You're now you're at Arkansas State. Maybe discuss sort of your role there as the director of athletic performance for football at Arkansas State. And then we'll sort of get into your original email to me, which connected us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I'm considered the director of athletic performance, and that's just a fancy title for a lot of people know us as a head strength coach or head strength and conditioning coach. And I've been here 4 years, going on year 4. I've been doing this for 18 years. So I've been very blessed. I've found a passion, like an absolute passion that I have. And it's been funny because these 18 years I've been doing it, I'm 40 years old now, and I feel like I'm having the most fun I've ever had coaching. And I had an absolute blast when I got in at age 22. It's just, I really didn't, I thought I knew a lot then, but why it's been so fun and energizing is because I'm learning more, I'm growing, I'm creating these deeper relationships and having this bigger impact than maybe I ever thought it could when I got in it at age 22. And part of the reason why I got in it is because I love training. I just loved performance training.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody that's an athletic performance coach knows what we do goes so much deeper than performance training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what's cool about it. And we're gonna get into that because you've been at Boise State and Auburn and Appalachian State, so a lot of big schools and incredibly successful programs. And I want to talk about some of those coaches and the culture. But I think starting with your original email to me, which was sort of a thank you of, hey, I read your book, Every Moment Matters, gifted it to all of our coaches or the coaches that work for me here. And this idea of taking coaching from transactional to transformational. And certainly any coaching, but especially a strength and conditioning coaching, can be very transactional because it's very easy to measure you got stronger, you jumped higher, you got faster, without one iota of development of the human being in front of you, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about that. Like, and the other thing in that email that really stuck with me was you said like, college football, but sports in general, I would say, are more transactional than they've ever been before. Transfer portals and NIL and all this sort of stuff, it's very easy for someone to just be like, how do I get mine? And if there's any sort of difficulty or I lose my starting spot, how do I get out the door? Like there's no loyalty or connection to programs or coaches or anything like that.
Yeah, so let's back up there. The first thing you said is you just listed out my experiences in a lot of the places I've coached.
Yeah.
And, I'm so grateful to have some of those relationships and those experiences that I've learned from many of the coaches I've been with, a bunch of the athletes. And I'm so fortunate. I'm so grateful to have been a part of all those programs.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned so much at every one of those stops from a lot of those different coaches and players. And then, we talked about transformational coaching. So I even think about when I first heard that term was Joe Ehrmann's book. And
Mm-hmm.
I think back when I was at Boise State, and which was, 2010 or 11. And I read a little bit of the book. I didn't read the entire book, but, I understood what that meant, transformation and transactional. But did that mean that I was a transformational coach at that time? No, I wasn't. And I can, say I wasn't a transformational coach at that time, even though I read that material and I kind of understood what it was. And it's just kind of funny how as you grow and you learn and, you become a little more experienced. For some reason, the last 3 to 4 years, it has hit me between the eyes more than ever about the power of transformational coaching, about the power of investing in human beings as a person and getting away from transactional, because it always used to be, hey man, improve bench squat clean, improve 40-yard dash, improve broad jump, vertical jump, and then you feel really good about yourself as a coach. I really think right now, if all I do is get people faster, stronger, and more explosive and build resilience, if that's all I do, that's going to be pretty empty for me as a. But also, if that's all I do is get you faster, stronger, and more explosive and make you more resilient, I think I've failed you as a coach, because so much that goes in to being a high-level athlete and then also a high-level human being than just strength, power, speed, and being resilient.
There was this famous college baseball coach who passed away a couple of years ago, and I am totally spacing his name. And he had this great quote, and he said, "My greatest fear is, to be at the pearly gates, and they say to me, we gave you 600 boys to turn into men, and you turned them into baseball players." Right? And I love that idea of that's just the vehicle, right? Soccer, football, baseball, insert sport, right? That's just the vehicle of developing human beings, men, women, whatever it is, right? And it's so important. My timelines are foggy, but Boise State, were you under Chris Peterson? Was he still the coach there, or he had just left?
Yeah, no, I was there for his my first year as a GA was his first year as a head coach there.
Okay, cool. So you work closely with him, yeah.
Yeah, I'm super blessed. The foundation of my coaching years, the first 6 years of me as a performance coach, I was under Chris Peterson, and Tim Saha was the head strength coach there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's a guy who I think, at least what I read from the outside, never met him, never spoke to him, don't take the deep dive, but from his time at Boise State and then his time at Washington, right? Like really sort of created these cultures that I think bred loyalty and bred, people really caring about the program and each other. And we won a lot of games as well, not in spite of it, but because of it, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, so talk about like what's a guy like Chris or your other boss there, or like that alignment as a staff, like what are the qualities?
Yeah, I think alignment's really important. The thing about Coach Peterson that I remembered a lot is he was a huge stickler on details. He was very detailed, but what I knew about him is he was also really big on character. And, it's the way I view this now too is, the first couple of years as coach, you don't even really think about this coach because you're always thinking about these other things. But what I like to think about too is I'm really big on high character, right? And I don't recruit. So I'm not going out and bringing in high character athletes because I'm not a recruiter. But what I believe is, and what we talk about a lot as a staff is we break character down into skills. So I think of character is skills. And Chris Peterson would always talk about behaviors. And when we think about, I give this talk a lot to our recruits is, hey, we're really big on investing in our people and investing in you as a human being. And we're really big on character growth and development. And if a lot of these recruits really aren't probably all about being a better person at their stage of life. They're probably just thinking about ball and, balling out, playing in the NFL, doing all that stuff. Well, what I would like to talk to them about and what we really believe in down here is we want to develop you as a person first. We call it personal growth drives player development. And character, we're going to break it down to skills. So, if I think about you, can you work on being a more disciplined human being? Can you work on being a more focused human being? Can you work on being more positive? And they say, yeah, I can. Well, to me, those are skills. And if you worked on your discipline, if you worked on being more focused and positive, that's going to help make you a better person. That's going to improve your character. But also, you think about having more discipline. You think about being more focused and more positive. Is that also going to translate to the game of football?
Yeah.
And of course, it really does. And we're really big on building these skills and habits that translate to being better dudes, being a better person. But without a doubt, you work on those things, you're going to become a better person, but you are going to become a better player. There's no question in my mind about that.
Yeah.
So I'm really that I got a lot of that from Chris Peterson at
Yeah.
Boise. It's really big on he called it high character, low ego.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're really coaching and working on here.
Yeah. I love that. And, you know, I think that's of all the episodes we've done with all the great coaches we've had, it's a very common theme, right? How much character matters, number one. And number two, being detail oriented. Now, some coaches are much more detail oriented than others, but the ones who aren't, or who are like, you know, I'm not going to spend every moment on the minutia, they surround themselves with people who are. Right. So though they get those assistants to fill the cracks, right? There's plenty of
Yeah,
coaches who are like, you know what, you know, Jeff, I hired you to take care of the weight room. Someone's not showing up and I need to intervene, go for it. But I'd really like you to take care of that because I can't keep track of 100 guys bench press or squat or whatever. But right, if they're not showing discipline, if they show up unfocused and they bring everyone else down, I want to know about that because that's going to translate on the field, you know, and you know, for you know, people watching this on YouTube, they'll see, you know, behind you, there's a picture of a full stadium of fans. And I always think about like, if you can't pay attention to details and be disciplined one-on-one in a weight room in front of 80,000 people, how can I trust you to be disciplined and focused and detail oriented then? Or you're going to get the play wrong and cost us a game, right?
yeah,
So, you know, being disciplined is a behavior. And the more reps you get at that, the better at the behavior you're going to be, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
And we're obsessed with that. In the weight room, we have something we call total effort. And every rep, whether it's a conditioning drill, a speed drill, strength exercise in the weight room, we coach total effort. And we break effort into three parts. There's relentless effort,
Mm-hmm.
there's detailed effort, and then there's consistent effort.
Mm.
And every movement we do, there's a component of being relentless. Like you got to attack this rep with relentless effort. Like you got to drive the bar up as fast as humanly possible. You got to attack that every single rep. But then there's also a detail component. You know, if it's a 5-1x tempo, you got to lower for 5 long seconds. And then you got to pause for 1 second. And then you drive that off your chest. And it has to be done that every single rep. That's the consistent component from how we start our workouts to how we finish them, to how we start a set, to how we finish it. So we're always coaching that. Like you talked about the details, total effort, we're relentless. We are detailed. Mm-hmm. We are consistent. Every movement, every drill, there's something in there that we're coaching with our guys.
Yeah. And I mean, and then I would say consistent, like, and do it again, right? Like that was your third part, right? So do it to your fullest, do it the right way, and do it again and again over time so it becomes a habit. And I think like when you bring other aspects of life, like, you know, hey, here's our players at Arkansas State. All right, we're getting on an airplane to go play this game. Do we hope that the airplane mechanic was detailed or consistent or relentless? Because if they weren't, we're screwed. Right. And so like, you know, you expect, you know, the guy in the restaurant to make your food the right way and the airplane mechanic to take care of the plane and the pilot to be on board to fly it right. Why would you think that you can show up and not be those things? Yeah.
Sure. And we talk about everything we do is habit forming. Everything so the way we train, we want to form a habit of that's just how we operate, whether it's on the football field, whether it's in the training room, whether it's in class. Like the more detailed, when you make that decision to be detailed in that moment and you keep making that decision, we want that to bleed over to other areas of their life as well, for sure.
Yeah. And I think a habit it's about intentionality, right? Like you always have habits. They're either good or bad ones, depending on how intentional you are about building them. Just like every team has a culture, right? You never don't have a culture. So you better be intentional about building the right one, or you're going to, you know, from time to time, or maybe more often than not, end up with the wrong one. And I think like this is where coaching education misses out. I can't speak to strength and conditioning certification. That is not my world. But I would say in most ball sports and traditional sports, they don't talk about this stuff very often. Or
Mm.
if you go to a football conference, there'll be way more people in the room learning about the 4-3 defense than there will be in the room learning about culture and discipline and attention to detail, because everyone's looking for the magic play or, the magic workout program. And it's like, no, like here's the program. It's still a bench, right? It's still a squat. Like there's not a lot of differentiating there, but if you can do it in a disciplined and focused way, you're going to get pretty good pretty quick.
For sure. There's no question about that.
Yeah. So talk about let's stick on coaches. I mean, we talked about Chris Peterson. Is there any other coaches in your 18-year journey, or even going back further to your journey growing up, that changed your life? And you talk about or that you've worked for him, like, man, that person is good. And you talked about Chris Peterson and being detail oriented. Like what else, how else would you define great coaching, and maybe where did you get that from?
Yeah. So there's so many good coaches from high school, from college that I've been around, and then post college when I started coaching, like from my time at Auburn, there's so many coaches I've learned from, strength coaches I've learned from. And then, I was at Luther College at Division III for a while, and then Appalachian State. And, I've been so blessed to be around a lot of high level coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I really have. And, the thing for me, and I've been 4 years here at Arkansas State. Coach Butch Jones is our leader here. And you want to talk about detail, you want to talk about organization, right? Demanding, having a high standard. Like I have grown from all of those stops. And I really, I like to say I don't have I haven't coached for 18 years. I have 18 years of legit experience, right? Not one you repeated 18 times. I've really grown each year. And that's just a blessing of mine to be around all these great coaches. And then even our coaching staff for our assistants here for athletic performance coaches. So when I study coaches, I like that really fills my bucket up, right? By being around all these great coaches. But then I just love studying all coaches from different sports, from different times. Like I even think about Frosty Westring, right? A long time Division III Pacific Lutheran National Championship coach who wrote the book "Make the Big Time Where You Are."
Yeah.
To like the impact he's had on me, from that was one of the first books I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll talk about the put up game is a huge part of my coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And from studying Gino Ariyama, from studying Steve Kerr, right? And then even Pete Carroll from your book Every Moment Matters, and just all these different coaches, that really does fill up my bucket, and it energizes me, because that's the fun thing about coaching. We all got room to grow, and we can all get better.
Yeah, no, and I Jerry always says on our podcast, I'm sure you've heard him say, is like, I'm the flute, right? And so all this knowledge, wisdom, passion, experience comes in to me, and then I just try to make it sound pretty coming out. And I think that's, they say great coaches, like our artists, we steal, right? Like you get these bits and pieces, and then you make sure that they fit in to your authentic self as well. Pete Carroll could never coach at a place where competition wasn't at the forefront, because he's just a super competitive guy. And, Chris Peterson probably wouldn't work in a place where they said, forget the details. Like it would drive him crazy. And so, yeah, I mean, what are some of these qualities when you say a great coach, or you're hiring, what are you looking for?
Okay. I love that question, because I've just gone through this the last couple of weeks. So I'm very meticulous about the people we bring in to coach our athletes, to coach our students. And, you think about it, we got a staff of 6 of us, and the time we spend together, I want to make sure we're bringing in the right fit and the right people. And there's 4 things that I really look for in a great coach. And what I do is I call all over. I call everybody and a lot of people I don't know, just cold call them and tell them I'm looking for these 4 things and see if they got fits there. So the 4 things that I look for that I'm not going to budge on, I won't, is number one, high character. So I believe when we're coaching our student athletes, yep, we're all about developing character and working those skills to grow your character. That's very important responsibility we have as coaches. When I'm looking for a coach on staff, though, that's not going to be my responsibility. I'm not going to take a guy that's low character and try to grow his character while he's coaching our students. So non-negotiable, high character. Got to be right. I can't teach you to be a man of character at age 23, 24, whatever it is. So the second thing is emotional intelligence. And talk a lot about growth mindset. And we look at a lot of things through a lens of skills. So EQ is really important because I didn't do a really good job in college. I didn't get really good grades. I didn't get a very high ACT at all, but I've understood the power of emotional intelligence and I've studied that. So we're really big on the 5 skills of emotional intelligence, you know, and it's self-awareness, it's self-discipline, it's motivation, it's empathy, and it's social skills. So we want a high EQ coach. It's important. You got to have that. And same thing. Those are all skills. We can work on those skills, but I don't want to take a guy who has 0 EQ and try to build those. So I'm looking for that, a high EQ. So you got high character, high EQ, and then we got passion. So when I talk about passion, we're talking strength and conditioning. So most people think, hey, strength coaches just lift a lot of weights, right? I want a guy that lifts weights. I want a guy that looks like a monster, a guy who can bench this and squat this, and he eats chicken and broccoli, and all he speaks is powerlifting. I don't want that guy.
Yeah.
He's passionate about training.
Yeah.
I want guys, yeah, you got to have a passion about training, but I want people who are passionate about making a difference, about being there for others, supporting and serving others. So the passion isn't just lifting. Oh yeah, I got this guy, he can squat this much. Man, he loves the weight room. He's always in the weight, you know, he's lifting. I don't care about that.
I mean, because there's almost an inherent selfishness to that.
For sure. Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Selfless.
Yeah, we want selfless. And there's a selfishness if I'm great at training. And again, to be great at anything, there's always an inherent selfishness, right?
Yeah.
But like when you're now hiring someone for a position of giving, that's not necessarily a quality I want to have or a quality I want to break.
No question. I don't want to hire a guy who worries more about what he can lift than what our players can lift.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the third one, right? You got to have a passion. And then the fourth one is you got to be coachable.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you're not coachable, if you're closed-minded, if you think you know it all, number one, you're not going to get better. You're not going to grow, but also you're not going to fit in with what we do. Because what we do is we're always, you know, I call it that constant quest of improvement. We're always trying to find that holy grail of athlete programming. We're always trying to find the best way to do it. And if you think you know it all, if you think you learned from this system or you read this textbook or you read this and you're good and you know, like you're stuck, we don't want that. So on the front end, we're looking for those 4 things. And then really fun though, is when you get those 4 things and then you bring them in to a staff where all those other guys have those 4 things, those 4 qualities. Man, what a fun staff to be a part of. Like the staff we have, you know, super blessed. And they don't work for me, right? We work together. And it's not about who is right. It's about what is right. And I just, you know, I have so much fun coaching with these guys. And when you bring in people that have those 4 qualities, like the environment, the everyday environment, our players really gravitate towards our coaches. They love them. And, you know, and we just had a couple guys leave. We had a guy go to Georgia and a guy leave to NC State. And when we had told the team that Eddie King, a guy who's been here 2 years, is leaving for Georgia, there was tears.
Yeah.
There were guys crying. And that's how it should be, because Eddie, you know, he'll tell you himself, Eddie was not a polished strength coach. He barely coached anything with training. But Eddie he's high character. He has a high EQ. He has a deep passion for making a difference and creating strong relationships. and he's coachable. So to see how much he grew in just 2 years as a coach, I mean, that was really fulfilling for me to see. And then the impact it had with our players. And now he's at the University of Georgia, as an assistant training coach there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I want to make sure people are listening. Like, I love when you said, I just start cold calling people and be like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Do you know anyone who might be a good fit, right? And you're not saying, anyone who can bench 400 pounds, nor are you saying, hey, do you know anyone who has gotten their national strength and, certification? Like, yes, that matters, but those things are much more teachable than these other things. And so to say that, like, I think this is why most people get interview questions wrong. They hire on resumes of this is where they played or this is what license they have, but really what it comes down to, like, I ask athletic directors all the time, when's the last time you fired your football coach because they didn't know enough about football, right? Never, right?
Yeah.
Why'd you fire them? Because they had poor character. They weren't passionate. They were a bad communicator. Their emotional intelligence was terrible. They couldn't get along with parents or players or staff or whatever it is, right? And so this is so important. If this is like really what everyone should do is, why do I fire people? And then let me make sure I hire someone who has the characteristics that isn't going to get them fired. Now, the other piece, and you can touch on that in your answer, maybe this is the two-part question. You also, when you're hiring people like this, you're going to lose them. And that's like such a hard thing, but to surround yourself, A-level people surround themselves with A-level people, knowing that they're going to lose them, they still train them up, they still give them all these skills, and then they say, I know you're going to move on, but while you're here, if I don't train you because I'm afraid you might leave, everyone suffers, right?
Yeah, there's no question. And I've kind of flipped the script on that because in the first couple of years, I would get frustrated when they leave.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of hard finding people that fit those four things. And then I just wasn't going about it maybe the right way. But now, like, deeply grateful for all those coaches that served, right, and made a difference here and made our program better. But then also, I'm flipping the script. All right, I'm excited. Let's go get the next one. Let's go get the next. Go get the next guy. And then I've really enjoyed making all these cold calls, talking to these coaches, and trying to find that next really elite human being who's going to become a great performance coach. And to me, that process has been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed it, and it's even energized me because I have a passion for developing our student athletes. Like I'm so dialed in, I'm so obsessed, which every single day, this obsession for improvement with our players. Now, same thing though, I have a really deep passion too for developing our coaches, because like there's so many things that you can do as a staff, from the professional development, from the mental performance side to, to number one, grow you as a coach, but then to grow our culture, to grow our team, and to grow each individual player. So that's been a lot of fun for me lately too.
Yeah, no, man, I love that. And I think, I think about like my time as a college coach and working under one strength and conditioning coach for a couple of years that was so blah. And then the university hired a new one and he was unbelievable. And I was like, whoa, oh, this is good. Like really. And, he went on beyond there to, he's still at the Chicago Blackhawks and has won multiple Stanley Cups. Right. But you could see these things, right? And a couple of years ago, I visited him in Chicago and I've had him on the podcast, and yeah, high character, gets people, super passionate about what he does, really detail oriented, really high standards for himself, that then he can also have high standards for his athletes as well, right? You can't be saying be on time if you're always late. You can't say eat well if you don't eat well.
And that, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right on that. We talk about that as a coaching staff. So we have really high standards for our guys, how they train, how they show up, the body language they present, how they attack every rep. Like, we have really high standards. So, and we talk about integrity. Are you going to be the type of coach that is on these guys every second of their development. But then when it comes to you getting better, you're not that guy that's craving that improvement. You're not that guy that is trying to get just a little bit better every day and on that quest. So we have that talk a lot, and we do a lot of professional development. We do a lot of, collaboration on just like, what are you learning here? We're watching this together. We're going over this stuff together. And that, that's crucial for a coaching staff to keep developing, to keep collaborating, because that's how we get our athletes better. That's how we make them, more mentally tough. That's how we make them more physically stronger, fat, all that stuff. But the collaboration and this is a quote from Buddy Morris. He's a strength coach. He talks about reading. And, if you don't read, you limit your knowledge. Mm-hmm. And when you limit knowledge, ultimately you limit the abilities of your athletes. And that's a responsibility that we have to our student athletes, always trying to get better. We push you guys, always get better. High standards, our effort, our details, right? So as a coaching staff, we hold ourselves to that high standard. We are always learning. We are always trying to find just little ways that we can grow and improve this thing day by day.
Well, yeah. And also, I think it's so important to never lose the feeling of what it's like to learn something new, right? Mm-hmm. When we're teaching an athlete something new, right? And the college athlete, they're learning something new in the weight room. They're learning something new in the football field. They're learning a lot of new things in the classroom, hopefully, right? And living on their own and life. Like, their life is bombarded with, first time I've done this, first time I've done this, right? If you are the 30-year coach who stopped learning 29 years ago, you lose touch with the struggle, the excitement, but also the nervousness and everything that goes into learning. And so, if you got nothing to learn about, strength and conditioning, which of course you don't, at least learn the guitar, right? Play an instrument, do something, so that you can remember, you never forget what it feels like to learn.
Yeah, no question. Get uncomfortable. We talk to our players about that all the time. Like, the lifeblood of being a tough human being is being uncomfortable. And, that we make that commitment to our guys. We're going to get you uncomfortable every single, and that's what we want to do. We want to get you uncomfortable. We want to push you beyond what's expected in a calculated and composed way. And I think every strength coach and every coach will say, I want to push you beyond what's expected. I think they talk about that, limits of human performance, however you want to say it. But that last part I said there is really important to us. We want to push you beyond what's expected in a calculated and composed way.
Yeah.
So we are very calculated with our work, how we do it. We're not just going to do 100 reps of back squat and try to get in as fast as you can, because there's a huge orthopedic risk there. Somebody could hurt themselves.
Right. Or these strength coaches that have put half their team in a hospital because of something like that. Like, what was the point of that? That wasn't calculated. That certainly isn't helping with performance.
It was hard, but you might have lost some of those guys for their career. There's too many times you lose athletes in a weight room for a career because the strength coach wasn't calculated. They just wanted to do something that was hard.
Yeah. Prove how tough they were, prove whatever. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, like, this is, I think, a really interesting challenge that coaches face now, especially college coaches, is that we know growth comes from discomfort. We know growth comes from pushing and saying, okay, now do more, right? And then we've created a system that lets people out easily, right? Transfer portal, right? What do you mean you recruited another quarterback or another goalkeeper or another whatever in my position? I'll just transfer, right? And I think, that doesn't start in college, right? It starts at the youth level where, if it's difficult, just switch clubs or switch schools or whatever. But that's what always scares me the most. And I think it makes it really difficult to coach is this, how do you push someone when if they get this uncomfortable, it's so easy to leave?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll take you through, this made me think of something here that I talked to a lot of our recruits about. and that I'm going to be very, very intentional with our freshmen that are coming in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm over communicate this, and I'm gonna over communicate it to our team because they all need to hear it. And it's basically the 4 stages of development that a college football player goes through. And you could say this is the 4 stages of development a soccer player, a basketball player goes through. Basically, these 4 stages are development is something a high school athlete will go through this. A college athlete will definitely go through this. And it's very important they understand this. So we talk about stage 1. Okay. So this is the high school football player. It's called unconscious incompetence. We call it stage 1. You don't know. You don't know. You are this super confident. You're probably a little bit cocky. You're the man. You're the best player in your area. You're the best player on the field. Athletically, everything has probably came really easy to you. And you have this confidence and probably cockiness about you that everything's just going to keep being easy for you.
Yeah.
And the stage 1, it's a good stage. It probably helped get you to where you are. But then you go to college and you think it's the same stuff, right? I'm going to college. I'm going to start as a freshman. I'm still going to be the big man on campus. I'm going to be the best player on the field. But then stage 2 happens. And this is important. And it happens at different times. Like some of these freshmen, stage 2 might happen this summer. Some of these freshmen, stage 2 might happen in the fall when they realize they don't play. Some of these freshmen, it might happen a year later, the next spring ball. But stage 2 will happen, and we call that conscious incompetence. You now know that you don't know. You know, oh man, I didn't realize college football was going to be this dang hard. I didn't know that they coach me so ridiculously hard on these such simple movements, on how they wanted me to hustle between sets, on how we practice at such a high tempo, at how the time demands. They don't, they had no idea how hard it's going to be. So stage 2 happens, and then what happens is they go to adversity, right? Adversity happens, and they question their love of the game. They question, do they really want to play? And a lot of them just think, well, I can just transfer. I'll move back home, or I'm just done. And I talk to them about the importance of this stage. This stage could be the most important stage of your entire career, because when adversity happens, when challenges happen to you, it's a huge opportunity for your growth. And we talk to them all the time about this. Hey guys, you're all going to go through this adversity. It's going to happen. Here's what you don't do. You don't feel sorry for yourself. You don't show weakness. You don't have a bad attitude. You don't make excuses. You don't get all pouty and all down. That's easy to do, but you can't do that. What you do when this adversity happens is you just keep showing up. You come in one day at a time. You have a good attitude. You just keep fighting. You just keep competing. And you believe that this adversity, it's not going to be like this for the rest of your life. Use this adversity to strengthen you and to grow yourself into a more mentally and physically tougher version, a better version of you. So
and I think it's just important. Because like you said, this is the stage where people question, do I love the sport? This is the stage where people question, am I in the right place? Right. And then they use that failure for something other than, fuel to get better. And I think it's so important. And I think, again, we have parents who listen to this podcast, like, this shouldn't be the first time your kid experiences adversity. Because that's when they'll pry there. Or if all you've done is, remove the adversity from their life, there's no way they're getting through this, right? Like, they would have to be a really special, unique individual when their parents like, you should transfer, to go, I'm sticking it out because I believe in myself and I believe this is the right place for me to do this. And this is where I see so many college athletes and whatever. And this is where I think, and I want to keep going on these stages because I love it, but this is where culture matters, because it's got to be the coaches bought into this, but also their teammates saying, the starting safety talking to that freshman safety who might be trying to take his job, saying, "Hey, man, I was where you were 3 years ago. I know what it feels like, and
No.
it's okay."
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. And the one thing about
Mm.
stage two is we need to educate them on it. That's
Yeah,
really important.
I love
You need,
that part of it. Right. Yeah.
but then what else we do is we let them know we're here for you.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to lower the standard. We're not going to make it easier, but we also understand what you're going through. You're probably homesick. You
Yeah.
miss your family.
Yeah.
This is harder than you thought it was going to be. Dude, we're here for you. Come talk to us. Like, let's do some mental performance drill work. Let's, we're always going to be here to support you. So understand that, like, we know what you're going through. We're not going to lower the standard, but we're here for you. And we got you. You know what I'm saying? And then, like you said, the older guys, when they talk to the players and they say, "Hey, man, I've been through the same stuff." And I think what you could do is you could ask some of our better older players, and they look back at that time. I really think they would thank that adversity, because, like I said, if you approach that adversity with the right mindset and attitude, that could be your biggest growth moments of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And too many times, though, and this is still bothering me as a coach, is we see them stay in stage two way too long.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will get out of stage two with the right approach and the right mindset, but sometimes they haven't figured that part out, and they just stay in that adversity for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But then there comes stage three.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call stage three is conscious competence.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Unconscious competence. Yeah.
well, that's stage four.
That's
yet.
4. Okay.
So we call it three, conscious competence. And now that means So hard. It's not going to be easy, but you can handle it because you went through the adversity. You had the right mindset. You had the right approach. You kept attacking every day. Now you built yourself into a stronger, a different, better version than you've ever been. If you didn't have that adversity, you wouldn't be where you are today. You wouldn't be good, as strong, as resilient of a human being as you are today without that adversity. So that stage three is a beautiful place. That's where we want to get those guys, right?
As soon as possible. Yeah.
We want to try to get them to stage three as soon as we can. And then stage four is unconscious competence, right? So the way I like to say it is like it's flow state, or you're in the zone.
Yeah.
Now, it's really cool to see this now, because flow state, stage four for our guys, are our guys that have been in the program 2-3+ years.
Mm-hmm.
And really neat is you're not going to get to stage four in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. Stage four takes time.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. I talked to one of our former players, and I asked him, what advice would you give an incoming freshman? And the advice he gave him was appreciate every moment, and create this habit of every day doing things at a high level. Do things at a high level regardless of how you feel. And then all of a sudden, over that period of time where you've done that, no matter what you feel like down the line, the work is going to get done at a high level because you made that a part of who you are. You made that a habit. So we don't have everybody at stage four, but some of our best players, our guys that have been with us 2 to 3 years, the way they train, the way they compete, the way they handle themselves, their approach to adversity, their leadership, it is something that shows us the culture works, the training works, the mental performance work we do, it's impactful. Because some of these guys operate at the level they do right now. I have so much respect for those guys, and I have a lot of gratitude for them. But it's really neat to see that you ain't going to get a freshman there in 1 year. But guys that have been a part of the program those 2 to 3 years, they're building this strong connection. The culture, the training, all that stuff is working. And then they get themselves to this place where, yeah, you're not always going to feel great, but you do have a standard that you set for yourself.
Yeah.
Committed to that standard.
Does a high school player, in your opinion, go through the same process, or could they, or should they, if coaches were more intentional about it? Because I think, again, going through it once, like, I mean, you go through this in math, right?
Yeah,
I know I do. I'm still
yeah,
at conscience and competence in math, I think, and I'm 52. I know I don't know, but
yeah,
like, but again, so many, like you said, star high school athlete, they slide by the details because they're a little stronger, a little faster, and they can get away with it, and the coaches let them slip. That's the worst thing you could do for that next level player, because at the next level, everyone's like them. And there's very few people who are so strong or so fast or such a freak that they can get away with
yeah.
having bad habits and whatever, and so, I mean, your advice here to high school coaches who are listening, how do you put your athletes through this same process so that when they get to college, they can go, oh yeah, my high school coach talked about this as well.
Yeah, I think the education is really important because for some reason I think that a lot of people think everything's going to be easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be fun,
Yeah.
and it's not always fun.
Yeah.
I think it's can be really rewarding, you
Yeah.
know. So I think the education piece, and then I think it's really important to identify when your athletes are in stage 2.
Yeah.
And I say give grace. And when I say give grace, look, I'm not talking about lowering a standard. I'm not talking about being easy on them. I'm talking about having some empathy and compassion though for them.
Yeah.
And aside, having some one-on-ones, just going over some, mental performance drill work where you're just working some skills, some mental skills that can help improve this process they're going through. I think that's really important. Just
Yeah.
having understanding that stage 2, the adversity is going to happen, and then have the awareness to identify when they're going through it, and
Yeah.
then have that empathy, that part of emotional intelligence, and then coach them through it because
Yeah.
that's duty. That's our responsibility.
Yeah, and I love, man, I love that. That's the part, we've talked on this podcast so many times. So many coaches say, what's the most important tool of great coaching is individual meetings. And
Mm.
that's that individual meeting. That's that moment where you say, hey, I see what you're going through right now. And everyone that you're looking at who's ahead of you has been here now. The adversity, they're fourth on the depth chart. They're not as strong or fast or whatever as they thought. They're struggling with the playbook, whatever it is, right? Everyone's been there. And now is you have to take all that discipline and all that whatever and get through this spot. And I'm here to help you do that, right? Because there's no one that you're looking at on the field who's playing every down who hasn't been where you are right now and hasn't gotten
Yeah.
through it.
Well, you hit the nail on the head right there. The one-on-one conversations, the one-on-one talks, the one-on-one meetings, the one-on-one mental performance drill work that we do has been a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to think, this is me growing as a coach. I used to think if you give a really good, passionate, motivated speech, you did good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got motivated in that moment, that minute, and you just feel good about yourself as a coach. But being a high level coach is making an impact from the time they're away from you, right? The 22 hours or 23 hours, 21 hours they're away from you. And, I think it's still important that you give those speeches. I'm not saying those speeches aren't important, because it's kind of funny because, I've progressed how I talk and how I present to our players, where it used to be just a quick talk, and then we
Yeah.
give them cards, and then we ask questions about the cards. And now it's more, I do a ton of one-on-ones now. And I
Mm-hmm.
do drills, mental performance drills, and we fill out stuff and we go over different drills to improve different skills, to improve their skill set of mental toughness. And that has been some of the most impactful work I've done with guys. But you got to do all of it, because these big team presentations where you fire them up and you talk about something very impactful, not everybody listens to it. Not everybody, it's going to impact them. But I'm so surprised by certain guys who have touched on things that I've said, that how it's impacted them. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So just understand, like when you give these big team talks, you're not going to affect every single guy every single time, but somebody's listening, right?
Yeah.
Is listening, and somebody is going to latch on to something, and you got to keep doing it. Now you got to have a very sharp and focused message. You don't want to over talk, and you gotta, and I think this is something I need to get better at. You gotta have callbacks, as in you give your message, you give your main point, and I think it's important that they say it back to you, and say it's corny or not, but that's a part of learning too, is when you can say that same message back. I think that's an area where I got to get better, because I want these lessons to stick more, right? And I don't know if they'll stick with everybody, but I want them to stick with everybody. And that's just me growing as a coach.
You know, it's interesting as you're saying all that. I find this really cool. That sort of, right. So here you are, the athletic performance, the strength and conditioning guy, right? Where everything you do could be very objective. You can measure how many pounds and how many inches or, you know, centimeters, grams, and seconds. That's everything you do, right? And yet maybe no one's better positioned to be also treat the mind as a muscle and give them those tools as well, because we're already working on all your other muscles. Let's give you the tools for this muscle to do the reps so that everything else goes. Because again, like you said, you can give the best speech, but you know, when someone gets punched in the face, the next thing that they hear in their head, that's either, nope, you got the tools, you got this, or fuck, that was a good movie, but I am not prepared for this.
Yeah.
That's the path they're going down, you know?
Well, and this is something we talk a lot about as a staff. So when people think about athletic performance coaches, they think, hey, it's athletic performance training, and that's mostly it. Well, there's four areas that four pillars that we're always trying to grow in, and that we're obsessed about being the best we can be. Number one is we want to be elite athletic performance coaches. We want to speed at a high level. Any movement we do in the weight room, it needs to be done at a high level. We want to be really good teachers and coaches of athletic performance. Okay, no doubt, right? That should be every athletic performance coach. But then number two is we want to be focused on coaching what's between the ears. We want to be skilled at coaching what's between the ears, and we want to be focused on what's behind the rib cage. Right? It's the head and the heart. And we coach that. We have a system. And the same for the heart. You know, a lot of that is their identity, their purpose, what drives them, what are their values. Like we go over these things. We coach these things. We want to know these things. And then the last area as a coach too is we got to be clear. It goes back to what we were talking earlier. Are we clear on our why? Why do, you know, and I love those four questions. And inside out coaching is, why do I coach? Why do I coach the way I do? What does it feel to be coached like me? And how do I define success? And we have a performance playbook that all of our coaches, they write that stuff down, and they have an understanding of that. And to do that as a 23-year-old coach, that's really important, because I didn't do that until I was about 38. You know? So
no. Amen. Well, Jeff, this has been an awesome conversation. I've filled up a page of more of notes and everything like that, and we just kind of scratched the surface, but this is so good. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out and connect with you and have a further conversation?
Yeah, so my X handle is at JonesyJeff1. So just Jones Y Jeff, or I think it's that, or JonesyJeff1.
Okay.
And then my email is Jeffrey Cole Jones, just my full name, JEFFREY COLE Jones at Gmail. And then you know, that would be how you could reach out to me there.
Brilliant, man. Awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes as well for everyone. But this was a great conversation. You know, usually when I do these podcasts, I'm like, oh, that's the quote that's going to be the title, and I don't even know where I'm going to start on this one. I'm going to have to listen to it a few times, but so good, man. So listen, Jeff, thank you so much for what you do, for sharing today, and for being on the Way of Champions podcast. I think everyone listening today got a ton out of this.
Well, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on, and you keep doing what you do too, man. I'm excited about your next book. I already read Champions Teammate. That was a great one. And then I'm excited about the next one as well.
Thanks, man.
When
Appreciate it. Thanks for being on. Thanks everyone for listening. Wow. Thank you to Jeff Jones. That was awesome. I mean, again, here's someone who's gotten to work under a Butch Jones, a Chris Peterson at some big programs, but then who has really put a lot of thought into what does great coaching look like and what are the type of character skills that we want to teach here that are going to drive performance. I love the part about hiring and what they're looking for, high character, emotional intelligence, passion, and coachability. Um, of the three parts of effort. And then, yeah, just what we talked about there at the end, the 4 stages of development and how intentional we have to be at that conscious incompetence when people all of a sudden start to realize, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Maybe I don't have the ability. And that's when they could give up. That first real taste of adversity, they might walk away and they decide not to. So, great stuff there. All right. So thanks again. Connect with Jeff at Jonesy Jeff, or everything's in the show notes there, all his connection stuff and his bio and all that. But I hope you took as many notes as I did today. Thank you to our supporters at Sprocket Sports. Go to sprocketsports.com/CTG to set up a demo, learn what they can do for you from a website, scheduling, team communication tool. They are amazing people with an amazing product. Thank you to our Patreon podcast champions. Go to patreon.com/Way of Champions and sign up, make a small donation every month, and become a supporter of our podcast. That would be wonderful. All right. And then, of course, right, reach out to myself, John, at changingthegameproject.com. If you are interested in speaking engagements, if you're interested in some consulting with your school or your team, I have spots for 1 or 2 more teams on my calendar coming up in 24-25 academic year. So if you're interested, get in touch and we can talk about all that sort of stuff, bulk book orders and everything else. All right. Remember, your influence is never neutral. So go out there, change the world, make a difference this week, and we'll see you again next week.